welcome to our Culture magazine here on I24 News. I'm Oded Grober. Thank you so much for joining me. On today's show, we'll host Ian Sternthal, an art books publisher, to talk about today's publishing market and the Israeli pavilion at the Venice Biennale of Architecture. The story of Ayman Safiah, an Arab Ballet Dancer in Israel. And we'll talk about the record-breaking finale of the 4th season of Game of Thrones. But let's begin with some cultural headlines. The unusual and original musician Björk is also a prolific visual artist, and she's bringing her work to the Museum of Modern Art. It was announced on Thursday that New York's MoMA will mount a large-scale special exhibition next year featuring a retrospective of Björk's work from over 2 decades of activity. The exhibition will include some never-before-seen pieces, as well as a newly commissioned piece for the exhibition, an immersive 3D music and film experience that Björk made with director Andrew Wang. MoMA's chief curator said in a statement, "This highly experimental exhibition offers visitors a direct experience of her hugely collaborative body of work." No doubt this will be interesting. Director Zach Braff has always stood out thanks to the use of popular songs in his films, but now Braff is putting together his own original soundtrack. For his newest film, Wish I Was Here, the director and actor has assembled an array of original songs by an impressive roster of both young and established artists. The track list includes songs by The Shins, Badly Drawn Boy, and Paul Simon, and also an intriguing collaboration between indie musician Cat Power and chart-topping band Coldplay for the film's title song. Braff was criticized for using Kickstarter to raise money for his high-profile project, but perhaps he needed the money to pay all these musicians. Ian Sternthal is the owner of Sternthal Books, a boutique publishing house dedicated to contemporary art books. Recently, Sternthal published the Herb to coincide with the Israeli pavilion at the Venice Biennale of Architecture. Very happy to welcome Ian to our studio. Thanks for coming in, Ian.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I think before we get to the actual books that you're publishing, the first question is, a book publishing business nowadays? Really?
Yeah, it's a question I ask myself often because it is definitely a difficult business to start. But I think there's also something really exciting about entering a profession or a field which is in such a state of flux. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of changes with technological developments that have made it possible for young people and independent publishers to get in the game. At the same time, a lot of the traditional publishing solutions are being called into question. So right. Digital books and books that contain video and hyperlinking. So it's kind of an exciting time to be in publishing.
Field, no doubt. And I guess you have a specific feeling about the actual book, because you're not just doing digital books. You're doing actual books that can sit on your coffee table. What's so special about it?
I think a lot of the reasons why I do what I'm doing today has a lot to do with my own background. So making a book really deals with writing, curating, designing. The book is an object. So it kind of, when I started out, it was a way for me to combine all of my different interests. Mm-hmm. But I also think that we live in a world where media has reduced information to sound bites. Yeah. And so I think if we really...
Let me cut you off there. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
So we're so often, bombarded with information, but rarely do we really have the opportunity to get into depth. Yeah. And I think that books, in that sense, rather than losing relevance, become even more relevant.
And is there enough audience for it?
It's a good question.
Let's hope so.
I think it has a lot to do with the stature and the level of fame of the artist that you work with. So if I was making books for MoMA, if I was making books for very large institutions, then there would be a wider audience. Right. But I think it's just a question of it's a question of time. I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. I go to book fairs. I'm meeting people all the time. I do events, which put me in touch with new audiences. And
now, you made some choices. You're dealing, some of your books at least, are dealing with Israeli artists. And in your mission statement, you speak about making politically oriented books. Why is that important for you?
Yeah. When I was in graduate school, I studied a lot about Walter Benjamin. I don't know if you're familiar. He was a German philosopher who was very interested in kind of rupturing capitalist mythologies by creating sequences of images. So his concept was kind of to create new narratives by pairing disparate images in order to wake up the collective. So I think that there's a political potential to this kind of work, and I think...
No, I agree with you personally. Let's move on to the
Sure.
book that we're your most recent book, I think, the
Yes.
Herb. Lovely title, by the way. What is that about? The title, the urban suburban.
So the Herb is a neologism which was created by the curators of the Israeli Biennale for Architecture, the Israeli Pavilion, and it refers to areas which are neither urban nor suburban. And basically, in the Israeli context, it's referring to the massive amount of urban sprawl that we see throughout Israel today.
Right. And it explores its political meanings as well. How far do you go into it?
So basically, the footage we're seeing now, these are images from the exhibition. So the team, the curators, I should say their names, Edith Kofsky, Ori Sialom, Roy Brandt, and Karen Yaala Golan. Okay. And basically, they created these large-scale sand printers. So there's sand actually brought from the Ramon crater, which is placed on the bed of the printers, and then the machines actually etch in 100 years of modernist planning in Israel. So the Israeli pavilion is distinguished from the other pavilions in that most of the pavilions at the Biennale were more kind of research oriented. The curators decided to put most of the research into the book. So the book gives you a lot of context. We have essays by Amos Oz and Eyal Sagi Bizawi, which talk about what life is like in these areas. And then the sand printers in the exhibit kind of show on the scale of the country, the city, the neighborhood, and the building. Right. And as you see, different scenarios are etched into the sand, and then the machines erase them.
Do you think, is there something that's unique about the way that city planning and urban planning in general is happening in Israel?
Definitely. And a lot of that information is actually in the book. When Israel is very distinguished in the fact that it was kind of an idea before it was a place. And after 1948, Arieh Sharon was commissioned by the government to create a national master plan called the Sharon Plan, where he came up with 20 new cities which would be dispersed throughout the new country. What's unique is that it's almost as if the text was taken out of the architectural plans and directly applied onto the landscape, as if it were just a tabula rasa.
I see.
And Zionism also had a kind of aversion to cities, so that's why we see all of this dispersal.
Well, especially in yet another way. Ian, thank you so much. It's a beautiful book, and I'm looking forward to your next projects.
Thank you. And I just want to say one last thing. We have a website, SternThalBooks.com, where you can go and get more information on all the different projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on. Now to a dance studio in northern Israel's Kfar Yassif, from which Ayman Safiah went on to an illustrious career in international ballet. An unusual path for a young Arab man. David Gumbin met him to talk about his special journey.
The international media dubbed him the Arabic Billy Elliot. Though Ayman Safiah is very young, he is already fully dedicated to his passion, dance. At only 23, his career already looks like a fairy tale.
When I was 10, I would be lying in my bed thinking, I will go to London, a young boy dreaming. And now it's a reality. I'm living my dream, and this is not a feeling that words can describe.
He's a native of Kfar Yassif, an Arab town in the north of Israel. His love story with classical dance began when he was 11 years old. When Safiah was little, he learned the traditional dance tapke, a Middle Eastern dance, when he heard strange music in the next room.
I followed the music and I looked inside the studio and saw a ballet class. There was plenty of girls but no boys. The girls wore tutus, leotards, and ballet flats. I loved the music so much it drew me in.
He was thunderstruck.
I was so surprised as a little boy, 11 years old, who was living in Kfar Yassif. They don't really appreciate it because they're not aware of it. But I looked at it and I loved it, and I was shocked at what a man can do with his body.
Safiah started to learn dance by himself, in secret, in his room. But eventually his determination overcame prejudice and his talent was recognized, discovered by the local choreographer Rabah Morkoz. He joined the Krieger Dance Center in Haifa and then met the famous Yehudit Arnon, founder of Israel's kibbutz dance company. Those two godmothers persuaded Safiah's father that his son must continue dancing.
After the show in Krieger, Yehudit Arnon and Rabba Morkos came to my father and told him, "Listen, your son is talented. He wants to learn ballet, but he is afraid to tell you."
His family supported him and he pursued ballet throughout high school. Then Safiah won a scholarship and went to study at the Rambert Dance Company in London and then at the Royal Ballet Company.
I worked with all kinds of big names, including Gillian Lynne, who choreographed Phantom of the Opera and Cats. She was the #1 ballerina during the Second World War. She is 88 today. I never thought I'd get as far as working with her.
6 years later, he returned to his native land, where he managed to use his success to change people's mentality with regards to ballet.
I'm proud because I went through a difficult period with the society from which I came, and I managed to change it a bit. Now there are boys studying at the ballet studio in Kfar Yatsif.
Now Safiah is working on many projects in Israel, Ramallah and abroad, and he is as passionate as ever.
I don't want to be rich, I don't need much money. I just want to dance, to be on stage and to live my dream.
Life is too short. Use it well.
Very true. In a moment, we'll hear about Game of Thrones' law-breaking achievement. But first, a few cultural events from around the world.
The Tel Aviv Museum of Art is exhibiting a major retrospective of Big Muniz, reflecting on 25 years of career of the Brazilian artist that has gained major attention from the public since his appearance in the 2010 film Wasteland, a documentary that followed him and his artistic approach through landfills. The artist is a type of magician capable of turning any material into an artistic medium. The display Pictures of Anything will be on display at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art until August 2nd. The Expo Tsubasa Tokyo displays in parallel to the World Cup in Brazil the legendary characters of this manga lighthouse from the 1980s. They are the attraction of the museum's Ueno Park starting June the 14th. Among the displayed objects you can find original plates and giant illustrations in different reproduction sizes, an exhibition created to satisfy the fans of these kings of football. Tsubasa from every angle is on exhibit until July the 6th. Liu from presentation in Versailles, the 77-year-old South Korean artist has installed 10 of his monumental works in the castle gardens. A large metal arc 12 meters high like stones falling from the sky are part of this unique creation for this event. A fan of minimalist art, the artist's favorite materials are stone and metal, and you can view this magnificent display with raw materials until November the 2nd.
And now, Daniel Roth is here for a Shachal Peled segment, really, off-screen. I'm still happy to have you, you know. Even I'm always happy to have Shachal always.
We all are, and we're
Yeah.
sorry that she's not here.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But you'll
but
do
here I
good.
am.
You'll do good.
I've got a big chair to fill. It's
We're talking Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Probably the biggest series ever.
Yeah, it may be if HBO is kind of the big kahuna of networks, and this is arguable with AMC in the picture, but if we say that HBO is, and The Sopranos was the biggest show ever, then Game of Thrones has beat The Sopranos.
I think so. I
They
say it with a heavy heart as a die-hard Sopranos fan,
Yeah.
but I think so.
It's tough, but you know, and I'm totally into the Game of Thrones world now. I left New Jersey and I'm in Westeros, and so they actually bumped up from season finale last year to this year 32% to over 7 million viewers.
That's amazing.
It's a huge feat, but that's not actually the major accomplishment that they had this year. 1.5 million illegal downloads in the first 12 hours.
following the
Yes.
season finale?
So it was,
Wow.
it was Sunday night, the show ended, and people got to Pirate Bay or wherever they got to, and for 12 hours, 1.5 million people downloading this show. That's how popular it is.
Incredible. That's amazing. And how do you think they feel about that at HBO?
Look, I think...
Because they're not making any money off of these downloads.
It's arguable if they are or not, because what you're doing by allowing for people to download is creating culture. Now, let's back up for a second and say, you can't stop downloading. The only way to stop downloading is by offering a better product.
Mm-hmm.
It's by making it more accessible, making it a reasonable price, and giving it a good quality. That's how you do it, and HBO knows that, and everyone in the television business knows this at this point.
Yeah.
So how they feel about it isn't really the question. It's whether they're offering the best product of their product, the best presentation of their product.
So it's probably, that's the record at the moment, at least until season 5 begins.
At least until season 5.
Thank you, Daniel.
No problem.
Thank you for joining me today as well. We will be here tomorrow with a whole new show for you. Join us again.